Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan here, and we are officially, I know I said Happy New Year sort of prematurely in the last podcast, but we are now officially in the new year. So Happy New Year to you, NFL New Year, Adam Caplan. I know you're excited.
Yeah, look, it really, as we said before, it started on Monday. It's just so anticlimactic on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Like almost all the top players are off the board. So, and then we had a big trade of Von Miller on Wednesday night to the Bills. So yeah, it's just not that exciting once you get to Wednesday. It all goes off Monday afternoon. Big start. But we gave you some of the names, and they were in on most of them, and. We're talking about the Eagles here, and that's just the way it is. You can't get everybody. You get some, you don't get some, and there's competition. And then there were the Jaguars. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, oh, my God. And then, we'll get into that. But the reason why the wide receiver market was hot at the start on Monday because of the Jaguars, and then completely hit the skids basically after that, as at the time that we're recording this, there are still some pretty good names out there, is because – the Jaguars reset the market like crazy. Now every probably agent for all these guys who are out there are trying to get 10 million more than they originally were hoping for. I'm being facetious, but you know what I'm saying. So we'll get into that. We'll sort of, you're right. It's like a buildup. It's almost has felt like a decrescendo for Eagles fans since the start, because there was some bam right at the beginning and then not so much since. And I know that, people are very concerned right now. Listen, we tell you this every year that we've been doing this. Free agency, it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. I don't think that you should be all that nervous or worried about the Eagles not doing a whole lot in free agency at the time that you're listening to this. Maybe a move has been made, but obviously the signing of Haason Reddick is the only one so far from out elsewhere. But they do have holes, so we'll talk about that, and those holes got to get filled, and eventually they will. So we'll get into that, get into some of the things around the league, get into some of the intel that we, and Adam hit it on the head. I mean, I think we gave you guys all a pretty good list of names at certain positions. Certainly Reddick was one we mentioned. We'll talk about how that came to be. We'll talk about what he's going to do in this Eagles defense, and then to get into some other targets and, of course, some of the other guys the Eagles were trying to get, and we'll give you an overall look. What is, real quick, Adam, just in general, not with the Eagles, but in general free agency, anything besides the obvious, which is the Christian Kirk getting paid like a defensive end. By the way, one league guy goes to me, I cannot believe they paid that much money for two slot receivers, which is really fair. I know you've called them two backup receivers. That's fair too.
Kirk is a really good 3, low end 2. That's the way the league sees him. And Zay Jones, I just happened to talk to someone with the Raiders a week ago who said he did a great job because he could back up all 3 positions, but they saw him as a 3. He wanted starters money. He got a number 2 receiver money, not number 1. I don't know. And Evan Ingram, who was a disappointment by the Giants, I didn't want him back.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean, he got good money for 1 year. I don't understand it. I'll never fault a player or an agent. They did a great job. In fact, the crazy thing is, the guy who's got Kirk also has Zay Jones. How about that?
Happy New Year to him.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable job. I think it's Zeke Sandu. I think it's Zeke.
Good job. What do you think Zeke was like on the other end of the line when we're going to offer him about 18, what is it, 18 and a half, 20 million a year?
Yeah, it's the real money is 18.
Yeah.
It's just, as you said, look, you could say it's DN money. I mean, it's just, this is free agency, man. And, I said to someone the other day when I got the breakdown, I was like, this reminds me of an Alvin Harper. For those of us that are
good one.
Remember in our 40s or 50s, Alvin Harper was a number 2 receiver for the Cowboys. The Bucs paid him like a number 1, obviously, many years ago.
Right.
A couple decades ago. And he just didn't live up to it. You have to slot players for what you think they are and who they are as a player. Christian Kirk has never been a number 1 receiver. He's had to start, like he's done some good things where he's had to play extended minutes. If you remember, last season, AJ Green, I think he missed a little bit of time, but the big one was when D Hop got hurt.
Right.
Kirk had to play more. He's a nice player. He's a third
Yeah,
receiver.
good player. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you have to know what he is. This is just ridiculous.
Right.
But you know what? Hey, it's free agency. The crazy stuff happens. I don't have a problem when you bring in like a number one player at his position. It just doesn't work out. Okay,
Yeah.
the guy didn't play well. You thought he can do something. He didn't do it well. Whatever. But when you're asking someone to do something they've never done before, never been asked to do before, and they probably shouldn't be doing before,
Right.
you're misevaluating. But hey, we haven't played a game yet. We'll see. But Doug Peterson is way more involved, as I understand, in personnel. He doesn't have control. Trent Baalke does, but
Right.
Doug wanted it, and he has more input. I'm blown away. And they have a very young receivers coach. I'm told it was actually supposed to be Mike Furry, be the receivers coach for the former Bears receivers coach, is now a Division II head coach. For some reason it didn't work out for him with the Jaguars, but maybe contract. I don't know what the reason was, but this to me is really dubious. To ask guys to be what they haven't been in the NFL, to me, is highly risky to me.
Right.
Good luck to you, Jaguars. We'll see if it works.
And that goes to my point. I'd rather be the team that, doesn't quote unquote win free agency, that makes the value signings, as opposed to the team that's constantly resetting the market. So we will get into that as we go along. I just wonder in my head before we move off this, well, because you know how it works. The agent has usually, with a guy like Kirk, who's pretty good, you probably have 3 or 4 teams that you're talking with after, you whittle it all down, and you got to make calls, see who has the best offer. So I can only imagine the agent on with a different GM saying, well, your offer is good, but I've got an offer of 18.5 APY for him with another team. Now, what do you think the other GM said? No, you don't. You're lying. I don't believe you.
Actually, I don't know if they still do it. It's exactly what you're talking about. There was a form you'd have to fill out. Like, let's say you exactly like you outline it perfectly. There was a form that agents would have to prove that they were not lying.
Oh wow! Okay.
I didn't know we were going to talk about this. This is awesome. I just wish I knew. I remember dealing with this like 15 years ago. I was like, my mind was blown. Like if they think you're lying, they could call your bluff. You just have to have it. Maybe it's like you have to show that you actually have an offer in hand. Maybe that's what it was.
Okay.
There's a certain term that gosh, I can't believe I've never talked about this in the 5 years we've done our show. But but what's funny, on Wednesday, it's funny you say, like, I was talking to an agent who had a receiver who's still out there. He was a mid-level guy, upside guy, run a little bit. And he said, like, he was dealing with 3 teams. And one team was hot for him because the coach, one of his former coaches, has moved on, and this guy wants to bring him in. And they're lowballing him. And he's like, dude, I got other offers here. I know you want him because the coach is there, but let's go. And they don't want to pay him what he wants. It's just funny how this works. It's really interesting. We'll get with when we get Joe Banner on and Rick Spielman on next. We'll actually go through this. I'm so glad you brought this up.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I can just only imagine the reaction. Yeah, no, I got a guy who's going to give him 18.5 mil.
Right.
I'm sorry,
no. Well, okay. This agent Zeke, he actually, the word around the league was that he claimed on Monday he had a big offer coming. He didn't know. He wouldn't obviously reveal the team. We didn't know that it was Jacksonville.
Right.
He claimed that it was whatever. He had a couple teams involved, one big one. And sometimes agents are full of bleep. He wasn't. And I don't know this agent, but he did a brilliant job. Now, I would love to get access to what Peterson and Baalke were thinking, asking this guy to be a number one. I know this is not a Jaguar show, but we're just trying to take you in the way that the league sees this stuff. And
definitely.
My hair was on fire. I just was like this. And it's a 2-year structure, but the money in the first 2 years is enormous. I think it's $37 million in the first 2 years for Christian Kirk.
Can't wait to see all the TikTok videos about it.
Gosh,
All right. So for big fans of our show with Greg Cosell called The Intel with Greg Cosell, we pushed it back this week a little bit because we thought that there would be several signings for Greg to help us out with, but it should be out either later today or tomorrow. We'll definitely get into the Haason Reddick signing and, possibly anything else that happens before we record with him. Make sure you're on InsideTheBirds.com because we're doing daily recaps. We're doing analysis of moves being made. Had some good stuff on there. Andrew DeCecco has his mock draft 2.0 and I definitely think it's hot right now. I just checked the views on it, Adam. That's always a big
Mocks are huge.
yeah, people
Huge.
love that. And right
We'll
now,
do
and I
one.
thought he had good picks too. So really
Yeah,
good
we had a
stuff.
mock draft show. The three of us will do one.
We'll do that.
We'll do a little better. Someone knocked us for that we were way off. I mean, if you get my goal for mocks is to be realistic is get double digits correct out of 32 picks in the first round.
Yeah, that's tough, but yeah,
It's hard. My buddy Tony Pauline and I, we beat the great Rick Goslin. We got like 18 or 19 right. The 1 year we got 3 right. It's mostly luck.
right.
But you have to know the teams well, and when you don't know teams well, you're just look. It's dart throwing anyway.
Of course.
One trade screws up your whole mock. That's I threw my hands up. I had enough. It's too frustrating.
Yeah,
but
tough.
then we used to say mock our mock. Go ahead, and people make fun of us. Oh well. Anyway,
there you go. Speaking of Andrew, by the way, our series started this week. I hope everybody checks it out. We're doing a 5-part series called Draft Dreams with Andrew DeCecco, where he's doing the interviews. He's interviewing small college prospects who are, probably going to go on day 3 of the NFL draft, but probably, went to college not even considering being drafted. They have stories of sort of either rags to riches or some obstacles they overcome. The first one was with Sincere McCormack, a running back from UTSA. And Sincere was part of a class of prospects who helped build UTSA into a top 25 program. Not to, you never heard of Texas San Antonio really doing well. I think they're a really good track school, but they've never really been a good football school up until lately. So it's a great interview. So check it out. I believe next week will be an interview with Danny Gray, wide receiver from SMU, who ran the 4.3 at the combine. And he wasn't happy about it. So you got to check that out, that interview. We're really proud of this because it's just another arm of ITB that I don't think other people are doing. We give you analysis, we give you an X's and O's, and now we're giving you – because if you think about the draft, I mean, how many people knew who Milton Williams was last year before the Eagles picked him? A lot of those small school guys go under the radar.
Louisiana Tech, I barely knew about him. And then, when we got his measurables, we're like, wow, this doesn't really – short arms, but – that pick, I to this day, I mean, we don't quite know. We know that Tracy Rocker liked him. I remember we heard that, but someone must have really pushed for him because that, Eagles are a big height, weight, and speed, analytics, and he goes against analytics in terms of arm length, but his explosion, it's a great job. Like that draft last year on paper looks pretty solid, but moving towards free agency here, it's every year there's a different chapter. There's just some things that happen. Right. And we'll get into that, what happened. But, man, they Eagles try to come out firing. I'll say they did what we had heard. They were come out trying to. You have competition when you're trying to sign players, and it's not for lack of trying. They definitely came out trying to get some things done.
That's right. All right, we got a lot of stuff to get to. First, I want to remind everybody, I recently took a trip with my family out into the picturesque Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. The place was called Woodloch Pines. It's been named the best family resort in the United States by USA Today, in addition to being voted in the top 1% of hotels worldwide on TripAdvisor, not nationwide, worldwide. Woodloch is a destination unlike any other, a place where family comes together, whether it's a family of blood, bond, or friendship. Woodloch's signature warm hospitality offers a truly unique vacation experience steeped in traditions and warm, personalized service, and I can definitely vouch for that warm, personalized service. Those guys are amazing. It's a wonderful place to go, so I highly recommend staying at Woodloch Pines Resort out in the Poconos. All right, we talked a little bit about the Jags already. They went wild. They reset the market, so I think that's a big reason why you've seen the wide receiver market itself stall. And then obviously, Adam, you saw teams try to keep guys or retain guys through either restructures or pay cuts. But the craziest thing I think we saw that's not Eagles related was the Randy Gregory, you're going to put a little extra clause in my contract? I'm out.
Unbelievable. There were two of them.
How to screw up a contract, right?
I'm sorry.
I was just saying how to screw up a good deal 101.
Jerry Jones, it's just ridiculous. There was a running joke in the NFL, as long as Jerry Jones is running the Cowboys, because he has personnel control, not only is he the owner, he's the GM.
Right.
You've always got a chance to win that NFC East because he just things that the guy's got to be close to 80. He should. I know Will McClay is his right-hand man. Will's really good. He could be a GM if he wants to be. but he's been super loyal and they pay him well. But it's just ridiculous. The screw up. Then the other one, J.D. McKissick, was going to go to the Bills to be their passing down back, and he again, because it happened before free agency, and to leave a team, you can't sign until 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, and he decided to stay. Yeah. Now, I had reported, I know a lot of Bills fans don't quite understand what I said because I put it on Twitter. I think actually NFL Network had something similar maybe a week or so ago, but someone pointed out to me on Twitter. I didn't see it, but someone said it's out there already. What I had heard is the Bills had interest in McCaffrey. I don't know if they still do because they were told, I had heard that he was not available. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're going to change their mind on that one, but we'll see. But bringing J.D. McKissick, all he is a passing down back, and you could line him up even at X. He's a smaller guy, but he's you got to give Scott Turner and Washington credit for finding a way to use this guy. He's been really good, and he backed out, took the same deal that the Bills offered him, and he went back to Washington. So that the two players backed out of deals. But again, you're allowed to do that before 4 p.m. Eastern.
The amazing thing is we specifically talked about this last podcast as something you always have to be wary of when you see those agreed to terms early in free agency, because we talked about Anthony Barr doing that with the Jets, backing out. We, of course, talked about Frank Gore, who infamously did it here in Philadelphia when we thought he was coming here. So it'll be interesting to see who has a better career, former Eagle running back Frank Gore or former Bills running back J.D. McKissick. But
yes. If you want to find it, because people liked it, that tweet that Schefter put out, he and I reported it back in 2015 when he was telling people he was going to sign with the Eagles. Right. Then he backed out. For something happened with Chip Kelly. I don't know what happened. He just decided.
Yeah, LaShawn McCoy called him up and was like, because they're friends, and LaShawn was like, "I don't think you want to do that."
Might have been. I mean, I cannot believe it's 7 years ago. But anyway, yeah, people liked it this week. It's just so funny how people are. They just like to have fun on Twitter. So anyway, you can. So that happens. Again, you rarely see it. I think I might have given the Sam Adams example from a couple decades ago, maybe 15 years ago or something. Former D tackle in the NFL, big guy, probably close to 400 pounds. Says all he did is stop the run for Seahawks and Ravens. He backed out of a deal after agreeing. Now I know this. Teams hold it against agents when players back out. What they do is they MF them, they curse. I've been through this with agents when I've had to. I remember Roger Saffold. Well, it wasn't his fault. The Raiders screwed up. They didn't clear him on the medicals, and they already had the scans. So he went to the Raiders. This is going back 6-7 years ago. Yep. And then the Rams said we're okay with his shoulder, and he came back to the Rams.
Yeah. So it's crazy. I mean, it's not a deal until it's a deal.
Exactly. So until it's signed, so you can back out. Teams hate it, but then of course it's all about talent. They're gonna look the other way when they want the player. It's so they try to threaten agents. It's ridiculous.
Right. All right. So let's talk about Haason Reddick. So you and I kind of huddled up after the signing. We were getting a little bit of peer pressure on Twitter as far as, is this emergency podcast worthy?
Oh, yeah.
And you and I thought, well, what if he's a good player? It's perfect. I mean, he checks off a lot of boxes for what the Eagles were looking for. So that's a good sign right there. But we also thought it's not like Von Miller either, right? Like emergency podcast you save for like the real big splashes. And then I remember we were saying, well, what if we did an emergency podcast and then the Eagles then the next day sign, say, like Marcus Williams, right? Then we got to do another one.
Right.
To make sense at the time. Plus, it allowed us to gather as much intel as possible by doing it, waiting on it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, two things. We probably talked more about Reddick than any other player last week because we had very strong intel. This was one of their top two targets. It was Marcus Williams and Reddick. I don't know which one was one or two. I don't have access to their free agency board, but I just knew that you and I knew really together that these were their top two targets. And Cosell, I mean, we just put so much information out on this. I just didn't see the point. No, if they sign someone who's not on the list, hell yeah. If we didn't have any information on them, hell yeah, absolutely would have done it. But I just didn't see the point of it.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, look, they were going after a pass rusher. Their pass rusher is anemic last season, 31st in sack percentage. That's inexcusable. They're not used to they're just not used to that with this organization.
Right. So I want to clear something up that because we talked about the idea of them signing a player like Haason Reddick. If it wasn't Reddick, maybe somebody else who plays the strong side linebacker position. And I thought we explained it to the best we possibly could that the strong side linebacker position in the Eagles defense specifically is different than it's ever been. I mean, 2 years ago
Yeah.
it was Duke Riley. That's an off ball. Yeah, like it's a no. I don't want to say a nobody, but no one who fans really care a whole lot about,
Yeah.
right? But now that it's an on the ball position, it serves more than one purpose. On first and second down, I kept using the Jannard Avery comparison, whereas Jannard Avery would come in as that fifth guy on the D line as a extra run stopper, then he would leave in the pass rush. And what I was saying was Haason Reddick will come onto the line of scrimmage, be the fifth man. And then when they want to rush the passer in a more conventional way, say on 3rd and 5 or 6 or whatever, 3rd and long, he's going to stay on the field. Jannard Avery would come off. He's going to stay and be part of the 4-man rush. Yep. And he's going to be an edge rusher. So he's sort of like an outside linebacker / defensive end because he's going to play both roles. So when I think we explained that the best we could, and we even did it with Greg Cosell on the Intel last week, but we still had people asking us, is he a linebacker or a defensive end? Or does he rush the passer? Does he drop into coverage? And
all fair questions.
I think these are really good questions. And some of these things we have to figure out because I think the biggest question is not whether he rushes the passer on 3rd down. Of course, he's part of that. That they brought him in. He's a pass rusher. That is the first and foremost what he does.
Yep.
The question that we talked about is when he's the 5th man on the line, right? Let's say it's 1st and 10. The opponent comes out. Opponent looks like they're going to run, but it's a play action pass. Okay. Is he the guy as a strong side linebacker that's going to drop and cover maybe the deep comeback or the flat, or do you just want him rushing the passer? And if you have him rushing the passer with 4 other linemen, then what are you doing to be able to cover those regions where a strong side linebacker who does have that drop back experience would normally go? That we can't answer. But what we can say definitively is, and this is important, he is being called by the team a strong side linebacker. And what we know is his position coach is Nick Rallis, who is the linebackers coach. All right. We were told that's his position coach. Now, it doesn't mean he can't spend some time with Tracy Rocker or when they have their, game by game meetings that he's not involved in what the pass rush schemes look like from a D-line standpoint. But that's what we were told. So he is a linebacker. And I think as we still gather intel, Adam, we'll figure out, and you said this you said this at some point, and you couldn't have been more right about it. Good signing. You just hope that he's used correctly. And I think we have to find out what that means specifically, on those 1st and 2nd pass downs.
Yep. I'd love to have all the answers. We just don't at this point. We just know he's brought in here to rush the passer. But, I learned my lesson with Von Miller when he was playing strong side linebacker. This is early in his career with Denver.
Mm-hmm.
They had to kind of figure out the way they were going to do it. And they didn't ask him to drop much. They just let him rush the passer and bend and be so, because the thought process was, as a strong side linebacker, you usually don't rush these guys a lot. They cover the tight end. They won't rush a little bit, but they're going to evolve this position for him. I mean, Reddick is not here to cover. He's here to rush.
Right.
If he winds up covering too much, this is not going to end well for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I know I got some of the terms, but I'm looking to see the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to rush the passer. You don't bring it. I'm just telling you through Panther sources that all he really did is rush the passer. They rarely asked him to drop.
Correct.
One Panther source said he'd play with his hair on fire. He just unbelievably explosive, incredible energy, never stops, runs and chases. This is what they need. Okay, This is what they need. So that's what I know.
I'm going to give you an example visually. I'm going to describe it. Everybody's seen it. Not it, but like this style of protection, because the Eagles do it as well, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times when you're play action passing, right, you're looking like you're going to pass. You have the tight end lined up, maybe say next to the right tackle, and his job is to do a wham block while you do which means he comes across the line of scrimmage and blocks the left or the weak side pass rusher, right? there are a lot of clip. You can see it. If anybody, I know Jimmy Kemsky did a nice job of showing all the sacks
Okay.
that Haason Reddick gets.
Nice.
He
I got to
does.
see that. I got to see that. Awesome.
Haason is so fast off the edges that on some of his sacks, you can see he just beats the tight end to where the point of attack is supposed to be and starts pressuring the quarterback before the tight end can get there. And it's not the tight end's fault. The tight end doesn't run a 4.3 40, right? Most tight ends are a little obviously slower, even when they can block. So he has such good edge explosion that he can beat that kind of a protection. And that's what he brings. And I also think if they use him in a way where even if they don't blitz, if they use him as a stunt blitzer or a stunter, a twister, a looper, getting him laterally, but also at the quarterback, so he's not coming off the edge all the time, will be a good way to use him because I think it's fair to say, and I think Greg Cosell confirmed this for us. He's a speed rusher. He's not a power rusher, and he's not necessarily even a great speed to power. He just has great edge speed. So good left tackles count their stat. Like if they know he's only got a speed to the outside edge, they can kind of defend against that. But if you have him twisting and stunting and you're making the line communicate on where he is, or you just give him some free gaps to run into, some overloaded gaps, then that really caters to his strength. So there are some real good things here that he can do for the Philadelphia Eagles, who clearly needed more burst off the edge. Now, I don't know if you got any criticism at all, but when the signing first happened, I did a couple of interviews with 97.3, our Football at 4.
Okay.
And I gave from what we got from our personnel sources and what we got from Greg Cosell, what you got from Panthers. I talked about his strengths and I talked about his weaknesses. All right. This is not a 5-time Pro Bowl player. He has weaknesses. We just talked about it a little bit. So, and I got kind of crushed. Like I'm not giving the guy a fair shot, or I'm only pointing out things he doesn't do well, which is not the case at all. I said he's explosive. I said it's exactly what they need. We talked about what they're looking for. But the reality is I was asked on the interview, is he a premier pass rusher because he's had double-digit sacks the last 2 years? And I said, I think he's a good pass rusher, but I think of premier as like a Joey Bosa, a Nick Bosa, like a Chandler Jones, guys who consistently can get you 13, 14, 15 sacks at their best year, but not just number. I shouldn't just say numbers. They have a variety of moves. They've got good spin moves. They've got hand moves. They've got power. They've got speed, right? He's a little bit more one-dimensional, which you had even described in our last podcast from your Panther source, saying all you want him to do is rush off the edge. So that is something that you look at and say, all right, we've got what we need in a pass rush, but we're not getting per se, one of the best pass rushers in the game. We're getting one of the best speed rushers in the game, I think is how you would say it.
Like Ngakoue. Ngakoue is also speed rusher, is built a little differently, maybe a bit an inch taller. Arms might be a little bit longer, but the Reddick is incredibly explosive, and shame on the Cardinals to not figure it out with him until his fourth year.
Right.
They tried to make him an inside linebacker. They couldn't figure it out until they had to, until it became, push came to shove. I remember he was available one year and they wound up not trading him. Thank goodness, because they figured the fourth year they figured it out with him. But the Panthers, talking to them, no, he did well, but they just saw him a certain way and how much they were going to pay him. Brian Burns. Now we have to see the Watson trade, who gets included. I know the Panthers don't want to have Brian Burns in there, but we'll see where he goes anyway with Deshaun Watson. But look, they identified what they needed. They got that. You're right. When you said they were going to be aggressive, they came out aggressive. I mean, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
Certain positions, like there was not a guy on their list was like Jones, the corner.
Byron Jones from a couple of years ago.
There was not that guy on their list. They just didn't identify that one guy. Oh my gosh, we got to spend this. We need this. And we're going to go get this. They didn't look at it that way. Just okay. Priorities. We want Marcus Williams. We'll get into that. We wanted. They wanted Reddick, and we'll talk about another couple safeties they had an eye on. Look, and again, because I saw fans Wednesday night ask me, "Oh man, what's Howie doing? He's sitting on his hands, folks." This is not fantasy football. I have to repeat this every year. When they would screw up, it was when they were trying to win free agency. Teams that win free agency generally do not win. Bill Polian told me that in their study. You have to be measured in your spending. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether you have 500 million under the cap or 1 million. You have a cash budget. It's in the NFL. It's not about cap. It's about cash. Always cash is king. Anyone who works for a team will tell you that it's about cash.
Correct.
You have to work
Correct.
around the cap, but it's about cash allocation. You have to be smart about it. You can't spend at every position. And you take swings. You're not always going to get who you want. That's the way it is. The other teams have an answer as well.
So we know the Eagles have moves to make. How much better are they as a defense right now? I mean, obviously I'm going to assume they're going to put somebody at the safety position that at some point it's not going to be Kayvon Wallace and Marcus Epps. I don't believe, maybe Epps, but yeah. But we'll see. But you have to I don't like to do it all numerically. You lose Derek Barnett, from a pass rusher standpoint, you add Haason Reddick. To me, you've added your explosion off the edge. You've added your speed off the edge. You've added a couple of more sacks than you would ordinarily get. Barnett averaged you like 4 to 5 sacks a year. Reddick, I'm going to just go by the last 2 years, going to get you about 11, right? So you're up 5.5 to 6 sacks on a year. If you look at quarterback hits, though, Adam, it's pretty close. In other words, Barnett gets knocked a lot, but he did a really good job of getting pressures. Now, you could say, well, he played in Jim Schwartz defense. Everybody gets kind of inflated pressures. That's fair. But you could also say about Haason Reddick, he comes from 2 schemes that were very, very blitz heavy as well. And he's not going to be playing, we think, in a very blitz heavy defense here in Philadelphia. It certainly wasn't a blitz heavy defense last year. Mm-hmm. So if you're just looking at the numbers, you're getting, I just don't want to act like, Barnett did nothing. He was actually pretty good at generating pressures, at getting some hits on the quarterback. We know he's good at getting late hits on the quarterback. He wasn't great at closing in and finishing off those sacks.
Sure.
Reddick is so much faster that he just gets right on top of that quarterback. But so you've improved yourself, but there's a lot of work to be done here.
Look, he's just a much better pass rusher.
Yes.
For what they need. He's just better than Barnett. It's not remotely close. But Barnett can do more things. That's the difference between 2 players. He's got Barnett is a down lineman. You could stand him up, but he's really a down lineman. Whereas Reddick, really, it's a stand-up linebacker, pass rusher. You could play him with his hand down, which they may do a little bit, but he's just short. You don't want him doing that. You just that's not the way you would do it. Yep. Look, it's for what they need. Reddick's just better. I mean, there's no question. Now,
for what they need, no doubt about it.
If they use him correctly, that's something I said last week, and I'm still going to say it. Gannon, my criticism's been where it was because it's based on facts.
Right.
It's based on many NFL sources who've really been great to us, who've particularly advanced people, who've done work on the Eagles whenever they would play. Mm-hmm. And the criticism, they know how smart he is, but they felt like he could have put his players in position to do better. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we know Fletcher Cox's issue with his scheme. Then he finally gave Josh Sweat the ability in the second half of the season for the wide 9. You saw him play better. And, look, I get Gannon was in his first year. I mean, it is what it is, but we're not just going to – we don't throw softballs at these coaches. I mean, I don't like criticizing coaches, but when it's warranted – my criticism that I have from people around the league is not on the position coaches; it's the D coordinator. The linebackers coach apparently is really good. Young guy, Rollis, he did a great job.
Yeah,
I'm talking about by scheme and adjustments. Gannon was a first-year coordinator, first time ever calling plays. He learned a lot. He's got to do a better job, and the clock's going to be ticking because they're spending money and trying to help him. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, you can't have like the first 5 games of the year and Reddick only has 1 sack and they haven't schemed him well and they haven't used him, like we said, athletically and capitalized on all of his great traits. That can't happen. So let's move on. We'll talk about now safety, because just like we told you with strong side linebacker, we told you safety was going to be a priority to a point for the Eagles. They were going to check in on some of the top guys, which we know they did. We mentioned Marcus Williams, of course. We mentioned Marcus May. From the Jets coming off the Achilles. Those are 2 guys we know that the Eagles had evaluated, they discussed internally, and had both checked in on when free agency window, the tampering window opened.
Yeah, what do you know on both? Yeah, what do you know on both?
So obviously with Williams, and I reported it, tweeted it, it's also on InsideTheBirds.com. They made a very competitive, I was told by 2 different sources on this, the Eagles made an extremely competitive offer. Now I don't have the numbers, I haven't even seen it come out for Baltimore yet. So I can't tell you if the years and the term exactly like, but what I was told was it was essentially as good of an offer as Baltimore could have given, but he chose Baltimore.
Yeah.
All right. You can only do what you can. This is like Byron Jones from a couple of years ago. You can make a great offer. If the Byron Jones wants to get out of the division and play somewhere warm, that's Byron Jones's, desire. That's fine. You can't do much about it. Now they offered Marcus Williams a great deal, but Marcus Williams took a great deal from Baltimore, which, to be fair, has a much richer history of producing talent at that position, whether it's their own or free agency. I mean, from Woodson to Earl. Ed Reed, Eric Weddle, right?
You can keep
Earl
going on and
Thomas.
on. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, you can go.
Chris McAllister.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he moved over to safety. You're right. Kim Herring, former Penn Stater.
Good call by number 20, Kim Herring.
Yeah.
You know me with the numbers. I know players by numbers. So, look, it was either, our understanding is either the Eagles or Baltimore. Eagles made a very strong offer. He just decided to go to the other team. Because I don't know this player. I don't know a lot about him, but I do know this. The Eagles did all that they could. There's only so much you could control.
They could have made a bigger offer, but I don't know what their valuation process is. So I can't sit here and judge something that I don't exactly.
Here's what I do know: they went to their limit. They went to their number, and that's
right.
That's my understanding. Just to add to what you have, this is where you have a cash budget, you have a number budget, and you have money. You have cash allocation, which your president, controller, the owner, they set the cash budget, and you have it, and that's it. Simple as that.
All right. So Marcus Williams will be a Raven, and that's kind of almost predictable when you look at it in hindsight, because that's what the Ravens do. They go after that position. Marcus May,
chagrin, by the way, much to your chagrin, because
I know you're waiting for an epic rant from me on this, but I listen. I'll bury them for not addressing it high in the draft, but am I going to really bury them for not paying $75 million instead of $70 million?
Let's put it this way. Let's say they only came at $9 million. That's as high as they would go. Then if I found out about that, I would absolutely say to the show, look, those were cheap. They didn't do it. They didn't step it up. Shame on them. They deserve all the scorn. They don't in this case.
Right.
They went for it. You and I came back from the comment saying they're going to be aggressive. They tried to be. You only control so much. It's
right.
That's the bottom line.
It does open the door a little to our discussion that we had last podcast, that I don't really want to have it in length right now, because there's still more free agency to go, and we can talk about this and when we do kind of our look back review on the whole roster. But Byron Jones, Marcus Williams, the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson. We'll see what happens with the other one. Like I said, when I started covering the Eagles, Adam, in 2005, they were in the middle of their golden era under Andy Reid, right? And they were the team that most free agents didn't want to say no to. They said they wanted to say yes. They wanted to play for Andy. They couldn't wait. Javon Curse came here. John Runyon came here. T.O. couldn't wait to get here.
Sure.
Darren Howard came here. So Asante Samuel came here even when they had some pretty good corners. So I have to be fair. It does seem like there's this reluctance for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but they're not landing their kingfish all the time, even with good offers. And I don't know if that's just a small sample size of 5 guys who are wired differently, or some kind of changing landscape. We'll talk about it later, but it's more than now one guy. So now I feel like
I hear you. I mean, it's fair game. It's more talk radio stuff. I understand. It's fair game. I knew Russell Wilson didn't want to come to Philly. That was he wanted to stay in the West Coast. And again, you want to argue, and I want to argue with Denver. Denver's past the midway point of the country. So
yes, no, but my new argument is, he said in his press conference he wanted to play for a winning team, and I'm like, well, they were 7-10 last year, and they haven't made the playoffs since 2016. So winning team. Okay, all right.
Yeah, I hear you. On that. But look, the bottom line is, they did what we had heard they were going to try to do. You only control your effort. You don't control the results.
Yep.
Byron Jones wanted to go to South Florida, is what we were told. And that's what he did. He wanted out of the East Coast, by the way. Someone close to the situation told us. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to, back then, were they Las Vegas the first year, maybe, the Raiders?
I believe they were still Oakland back then, but I don't
know. And really, quite frankly, Eagles have a better winning history in the last 20 years than the Dolphins have. So it's a tough one. It's fair game, but I don't know. It's all subjective. The answer is nobody knows.
Right. Now, as for Marcus May, I got to give Marcus May a lot of credit, or maybe look at the Saints and say, what's going on there? You're coming off Achilles, and you got a 3-year, $28.5 million deal. I think it was report,
Yeah, I
whatever it
haven't
is.
seen
That's
this.
pretty good to get a 3-year deal coming off an Achilles
Well,
injury.
I have not seen the structure, but we do know that the Eagles were in on it.
Yep.
They checked into it. We're also told he'll be ready by training camp, but again, it's an Achilles. You don't know how well he's going to play the first year, come back from it.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is, the Eagles, they looked into him. I
Right.
don't know that they made an offer. They exchanged ideas on what the contract would look like.
That's the information I got. They like the guy. They had
Right.
some concerns, obviously, about coming off the Achilles.
Yep.
That then doesn't sound like whatever guaranteed money that Marcus got out of the
I don't think it
28.5.
was a lot.
It might not have been a lot, but it sounded like it was still more than the Eagles were willing to gamble there at
Well,
that position.
I will see what I thought the Eagles might do, and again, I don't know if they made an offer.
Uh-huh.
To me, this is a 2-year deal. First year fully guaranteed, and if and again, by the way, the I haven't got the structure on the Saints deal. It might have been 1 year fully guaranteed, so they can get out after one. And then
Mm-hmm.
what happens is a lot of teams do this. They take advantage of an injured player. They will go 3 years knowing that there's no guaranteed money in year 3, and if the guy in year 2 is really good, not only will he come back, who knows? They may extend him. Maybe the agent and the player look to extend. But the fact of the matter is, this one was not as close as the Marcus Williams one, where that
Right.
one was like he just had to make a decision, and his agent, Shafi Fields from Penn State, another Penn Stater, who had a couple. What do you have? 24 players in free agency? He had a ton.
I know he's like an NBA agent too, so he
Yeah,
must
for
be.
Wasserman. Yeah, he did a good
Yeah.
job. And look, so another safety scratch off their list, and the list, folks. I know some people ask us on Twitter, who's left.
Mm-hmm.
It's the top end guys are gone. Yeah, but boy, what's interesting is that Williams signed a day later, or agreed a day later, and he got more money.
Yes, he did. And in general, I thought the safety. Justin Reed got what, like 13 million a year. It wasn't like when Quandre Diggs got 13.5, and he's also coming off an injury and he's older. I was like, wow, this market might be real hot for Reed and Marcus Williams, and it didn't turn out to be absurdly more than that at all. So
I think Justin Reed got 10.5 million.
10.5. Yeah,
Yeah,
that surprised me.
The cash in the first 2 years was very strong. But yeah, now he went to Kansas City. I don't, but Honey Badger, as of you and I are dropping this, was still available.
Right.
Cosell, by the way, said he looked great. He still looks great.
I just don't know that he is the type of player that the Eagles want in the back end. I don't know that he fits what they want to do. He's a good player. I mean, I'm not trying to say I don't.
He might be great, to be honest with you.
He's sort of like a nickel, like you move him around, like you don't
Yep.
play him at safety traditionally, but they need some safeties. Like they need 2 safeties. They have Avonte Maddox to play the nickel. So
Sure.
not that you can't use a second interior cover guy. I just think that for the money that they're going to spend, they need a guy who can play, a bigger guy to play safety, right? Because we know that he likes to play his safeties deep, but then run up in there for run coverage. And I don't know that that's Tehran's real strong point. In fact, someone pointed out to me that the Chiefs, by not retaining Tehran and signing Justin Reed, got not only younger, but they got bigger. So their defense did struggle. Sure. Their defense struggled at times, I believe, against the run, especially. So that might have been a calculated move, not just financially, but for a personnel fit by the Chiefs.
Yep.
All right.
So the next one.
Go ahead. So and as far as any other safety, I mean, look, it's just to me. I think we're getting closer potentially to maybe Rodney McLeod or Anthony Harris coming back, one of those two. And
there's some journeymen out there like Jerron Harmon, older guy. Charon Curse is really tall. He's really good at covering tight ends, but you got to know how to use him. Jaquiski Tartt's had a lot of injuries.
Yeah,
he's around 30.
Why wouldn't you just re-sign your own guy at that point?
Yeah. So that's it for safety. We'll see what they do. They're going to draft one. Kavon Wallace has not done anything the first 2 years.
You make me laugh. Yeah, they're going to draft what in the round 5?
I don't know when they're going to do it, but they don't have a choice. Like they got Marcus Williams. It changes the paradigm. Now they don't. They have Marcus Epps has been a nice story, but they'll need to add that. And then of course there's wide receiver who
yes.
must have 50
by the way,
about that. Yeah.
I'll just tell you, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not
I
drafting a
know, I
safety in the top
know.
50. All right. All right. I'll believe it when
Top
I see it.
50? All right, we should have a bet on this.
Uh-huh.
I say first 3 rounds.
So top 83, because I think their third round pick is 83rd overall.
Okay. I'll bet. Yep. You got bet. We got
I
to bet
gotta be
on this
honest
one.
with you though, for what they need, like using the 83rd pick on a safety to me is like sort of like, I don't know, at that point you're not sure.
No more patchwork, please. No more patchwork with this position. I can't take it any longer. I'm
Oh,
starting to go
really?
to your side, man. My
I
hair's
was
gonna
gonna
come out.
say, really? Where have I heard that before?
Yeah, I know. It's enough.
All right, look,
Anyway.
we'll get into wide receiver, but first I want to talk about the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This one's too good to pass up. It's like a between the legs 360 windmill dunk good. All right. New customers bet $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if that team wins. It's just that simple. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on the NBA with same game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. We're talking about 6, 7, 8 if you're feeling, very risky there. 8-leg parlay, you can win a ton of money. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code ITB. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if that team wins. Promo code ITB at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only, new customers only. Minimum $5 deposit restrictions apply in partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Wide receiver. Will one ever sign again now that the market is ridiculously hot? Of course, but there are some really interesting names out there, Adam. I mean, I did not think the combination of Allen Robinson and Juju Smith-Schuster and now Jarvis Landry would still be out there, once the new league year really officially began on Wednesday. I thought those guys would have homes.
Well, Landry coming off a pretty significant injury last season. He had ankle and knee injuries. I think the MCL was he's so tough,
Right.
such a good leader,
He
but
is.
he's really a slot who could play outside. He was played out of position at times. He's just a guy you like to have around. He's had some injuries. He's got to be around 30 now. Same draft as his teammate Odell Beckham Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, when you look at the situation there at wide receiver. There's some good ones out there. Look, that as expected, the top guys would go off the board. DJ Chark, because of his injury history, he got, I'm told, $10 million fully guaranteed at signing with $300,000 in incentives, maybe somewhere around that. We know the Eagles checked in on it. I don't know where the discussions went, but he went to Detroit. I don't know. I didn't get that one. Like, if you're
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, well, aren't you surprised? Like, if you're on a 1-year deal, why would you go to Detroit?
I don't know. If I'm on a 1-year deal, I'll even take less money, which apparently he might have done, to play with a better quarterback to give me, or a better organization even, to give me a chance to, strike it big the following year in free agency, especially if you're young enough like DJ Chark is. So
Yeah,
that one was a little bit head scratching. But you do notice the repetitive theme here of free agency is that you have a lot of talented guys coming off injuries, whether it's Chark, whether it's May, whether it's Juju, who only played 5 games last year. There was a pass rusher who was coming off injury that we were talking about. I mean, that's really sometimes why these guys make it to free agency, is because they didn't have good years because of the injury. So they can be real boom or bust type. Like Chark could be really good for Geoff out there in Detroit and have a really nice year, or maybe he just doesn't pan out. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. So let's move. Let's nail receiver here real quick. So Richie James, you and I both know that they checked in on him. They had some interest.
James, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Richie James, the punt returner, kick returner, receiver. He's had really one good game as a receiver for the Niners. He's out there, so they clearly want to improve their return game. We'll see what happens there. I know he's got interest elsewhere. Juju Smith-Schuster, I know they checked into him. Nothing going on there, but it could change after we drop this. Who the hell knows?
Right.
But, other than that, and when you look at the receiver position, Allen Robinson's out there, who we've heard rumors on the Eagles here. I've not been able to nail those down. Bear sources told me they were going to play him as slot, going to move from X to the slot because they do not think that he ran well enough downfield. He's great in a short area. Great short area quickness for a guy who doesn't run fast downfield. Right. First 10 yards, his 10. Their view of him on the 10 was really good. Not so good long speed.
Yep.
But we'll see. Well, if they sign Robinson, we'll have an emergency pod. We promise that'll be huge. Always been a big fan of his, but tough year last year. And he and Matt Nagy did not see eye to eye. That's been well documented by the reporters there in Chicago. Mm-hmm. You had a nugget on Brian Pringle's out there that they wanted to pick him up. We're talking about the Chiefs bringing him back. Have not heard Eagles on him, and that's it. I've not heard Eagles from any other receiver. They got to bring a veteran in. Got it.
I would think. I sense that. Well, here's what I know. I know Pittsburgh does want Juju Smith-Schuster back, so I sense that they will be competitive in trying to bring him back. Right. We'll see what the number is. It feels like if anybody's willing to offer more than 1 year, right, then that team might have a good opportunity to get him because he's coming off a 5-game season.
Yeah, so right, shoulder.
Shoulder injury. So this is kind of those prove-it deals that you're going to speak of. So we'll see if he can get more than 1 year deal. And I do get a vibe that the Chiefs are trying to do something at wide receiver. They did. I know they wanted to bring back Byron Pringle.
Yeah.
I've been told that Pringle, thinks he can do pretty well on the free agent market. Now, obviously, at the time of us recording this, he's not signed.
Yeah.
So I think some teams look at him as maybe a $3 to $5 million a year wide receiver with good upside if you can get him in your program and see. But the way the money has been going to wide receivers, I guess you can understand if Pringle and his reps feel that he can do better than that. So we'll see. So
funny. On that, so I was talking to this guy on Wednesday. This guy's got a receiver, and he goes, the problem with not the Chark deal, the what's the guy's the Christian Kirk, it was so over market for him that there's nothing in between. It's it's one thing if he would have got 12, then you could try to get closer to 10, 11, maybe 12. But when it's so out of whack, getting 17 or 18 million a year for a guy who should getting honestly 8 to 10 million is really what he is. 12 if you knock it out of the park. But this was so ridiculously out of whack and over market.
Yep.
It's actually hurting the mid-level free agent receivers. It's just based on looking at the guys who are out there.
Yeah. Listen, that there was some agent who has a wide receiver who's on the phone with the team when the Christian Kirk news broke, and then the team goes, so you said your guy is $6 million? He goes, no, I said 16 million.
40 and slip.
Yeah, 16 million. So we'll see. I still think. Now, we know the Eagles have looked at wide receivers in the draft. We mentioned how Aaron Moore had led the workout for Treylon Burks at Arkansas about a week and a half ago. So there is the opportunity for them, but they need, as we have said for over a year now, a veteran wide receiver. So I still am of the belief they come out of free agency with a veteran wide receiver. I just, we'll have to see. Man, it would be sort of shocking and sort of, in my opinion, not good overall for the team if they don't come out of here with some wide receiver who's played in the league a few years.
Okay, two things. Okay, number one, free agency does not end today.
Correct.
Their games are not played till September. I always have to remind myself of that because I complain like everybody else. Why don't they dress this?
Good point.
Camp doesn't start till July. It doesn't matter if they don't get that guy now. It matters, sure as hell matters when training camp starts.
Yep.
So I know people want action. I get it. Geoff and I were fans once. We get it. Mm-hmm. But inaction doesn't mean that they're not trying. It's just they have a budget, they have grades, and that's the way it works.
Right. Also, we can point out some trades get consummated a lot of times after the draft. A team may have a couple of good receivers, but be in a position where they draft a wide receiver, and now they have a little too many, and it doesn't make financial sense, so they make a trade. Sometimes there's a lot of new coaches. Sometimes coaches realize certain guys don't fit the scheme. That's a lot of what made Ronald Darby expendable in Buffalo and what got him dealt to the Eagles in the middle of training camp. So I would agree with you. If they don't have to come out of free agency, that you just like to make sure that by the time they start in September, that they've got a veteran wide receiver on the 53, whether it's free agency trade or whatever. Correct. So I would agree with you on that. Good call on there. All right. So the Eagles did take care of some in-house business that I want to get to. First, I want to tell everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They are always enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. Make sure you check out all their great work at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you happen to go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, the in-house stuff, Adam. So we've got Nate Herbig, who was given the right of first refusal tender. We've got Greg Ward, who was not tendered, but he did re-sign 1 year, which we said would be a likely route for some of these restricted free agents. You get a little bit of an assurance in your contract, and you re-sign for less than the tender. And Andre Chachere, I believe I pronounced that correctly, the core special teamer and corner also, and you had a nugget that he resigned and he got some guaranteed money out of that, right?
Yeah. Okay. So here, real quick, and we can move on. So Herbig, $2.433 million on the low tender. We told you last week he was coming back. They wanted him. We told you either be a low tender or they'd sign him to a different number. They didn't. They because he's so valuable, they didn't take that chance. To not tender him. Then what if the agent just finds another deal elsewhere? Now, restricted free agents rarely leave. I get it. Low tender, $2.433 million, very valuable guy. Still unlikely he signs a offer sheet with another team, but you never say never. So might like him. He's a great backup, really one of the better backup interior linemen in the league. It's just really he's a guy you could use in a pinch, but he's not a full-time starter. And then Alex Singleton, Mr. Tackler. I don't see him coming back. My understanding is he has interest elsewhere, so we'll see where he goes. Boston Scott, they've left the door open, as we understand it, but we knew that you couldn't justify a backup where they have a lot of running backs. Right. Because Gainwell, barring something unforeseen, will be the number two. And we've said this many times, they only like using two backs. The only reason Scott played is because Sanders got hurt and Jordan Howard got hurt, but he's such a good player. It's a shame. It's just it's a shame that it's no one's fault. He's a victim of circumstance, of numbers. That's just the way it is.
Adam, with Herbig, don't you think it would almost make sense if you were the Cowboys, Giants, or Washington, all of them who've lost some players and could probably use some help on the line, especially the Giants? Wouldn't it make sense to give Nate an offer that's more than the tender and at least make the Eagles match it? If anything, you've made them pay more money than you want. And if the Eagles don't match it, you get yourself a good, valuable lineman.
Two things. This is a tactic. It's funny you bring that up. Teams have done that before, but the problem is, what if they don't match it and you really don't? Let's say you offer them, let's say you give a 2-year, $8 million contract, right? Which is really good backup money for an interior lineman, like a little bit over market for a backup interior lineman. Not a starter, but a backup. Would obviously be low for a starter, but what if the Eagles don't match and you can't play the game? Either want the guy or you don't. But
that's what I'm saying. Like I picked those teams because they Washington lost Moses, they lost Scherf. I mean, they could use. I think Nate Herbig could compete to start for them. Maybe not ideal, but compete to.
I'd be very surprised. I don't know. Look, I know it only takes one team. I get that.
Yeah.
He's an excellent
line play is so bad in the NFL.
I hear you. Look, it only takes one team. It would be interesting if it happened. I'd be not shocked, but I would be surprised because he's just not the athlete that you want. I know he's lost weight. Great story development as an undrafted free agent. The Eagles are the best, probably the best team at developing linemen. And Jeff Stoutland should run for mayor of offensive lineman, man. He's incredible, this guy. But that's what it is. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But they like to have him back, and barring an offer sheet, he will be back.
All right. So we take a look at the broader landscape here. The Eagles had the only free agent, in-house unrestricted free agent that I believe the Eagles lost to another team was Haason Reddick, unless I'm mistaken, right?
Did he sign somewhere?
Yes, Haason Reddick signed, I believe, with the 49ers.
Really?
I thought it was like a 1-year deal. The fact that you're surprised now, maybe I'm like, did I mistake that for somebody else? Am I wrong?
No, he did 1 year, 1 year over $2 million. Wow.
Yeah. Hassan Ridgeway gets a contract before
the
Derek
first
Barnett does.
That's unbelievable. Wow, I was unaware of it. Wow. And now I don't know what the real money is. It says the report's 1 year, 2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, the guy's a fourth D tackle. But they run the wide nine there, just so you know. They run Chris Kusarek,
Oh yeah,
Jim Schwartz protege, and he's one of the top D line coaches in the league.
he's
So
good.
he's had experience in the wide nine, this kid. So hey, good for him.
Right. So Ryan Kerrigan's still out there. Steve Nelson. You mentioned Alex Singleton was not tendered, so he's a free agent. We'll see what happens if he gets a deal from somebody. Jannard Avery, Derek Barnett, the two safeties, Harris and McLeod. Jason Groom's coming off the knee, so he's probably not going to sign right now. And we'll keep our eyes on Boston Scott, and I can't imagine Jordan Howard's going to be getting a deal from anybody. So the Eagles probably not going to be huge players in next year's comp pick game because it doesn't, we'll see what Barnett gets.
It's added. We won't know for what weeks because it's it's added versus guys you lose, and that's
right.
You won't know for weeks.
Right. A long time. All right. And I'm trying to think. I think we've covered everything. What do you, before we get out of here, the Eagles' next signing will be what, in your opinion? What do you think it'll be?
Safety, probably receiver first, then safety.
That's what I think too. Yeah. I think receiver. Maybe
safety is so picked over. I don't even know, but receiver, they're trying. I don't work for the team, so I can't. It's impossible to accurate. We have no control over this stuff.
Right.
We just know where they're at. We give you the intel. We tell you what they're trying to do. We have no control of the results. So
I would agree with you on receiver because it feels like at this point you can get the same caliber safety that's out there, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I mean, it's the talent level has leveled off quite a bit there. So,
sure.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.